I'm Daphne Richards. Our question this week is from viewer Pete Vera, who says, I've always heard that mulch helps keep moisture in the ground, but after a half-inch rainfall event last year, I was shocked to see that the mulch also prevented the rainfall from penetrating the ground. The soil was absolutely dry after a half-inch of rain. What should I do this year? Well, Pete, your observation is correct. Because the extremely hot, dry weather last year, organic mulch got and stayed really dry, creating a sort of crust on top of the soil. So when it rained, the mulch soaked up some of the water, but since it was so dry, much of that water may have run off to surrounding areas because it couldn't soak in fast enough. The mulch was still doing its job though, protecting the soil from the elements and insulating it to keep it cooler and keep moisture from evaporating so quickly. So, back to your question of what to do. You should still use mulch, only instead of using the standard recommendation of 2 to 3 inches, maybe cut back to only 1, so the rain-blocking crust doesn't get so thick. During extremely hot, dry times, the lack of moisture also keeps the mulch from breaking down at the soil surface and becoming soil-building organic matter for the future. In my garden, I usually just add a 1-inch layer of new mulch to the top of last year's. But this year, I went ahead and removed most of the old mulch and put it in my compost pile before I added new mulch. Last year's dry, crusty mulch would eventually break down with enough moisture, but you don't want to make the layer even thicker by just adding mulch on top. Another helpful thing to do this year would be to add drip irrigation or soaker hoses to your beds under the mulch, if possible. Adding moisture underneath the mulch will ensure that your plants get water directly where they need it. And if you don't have a compost pile for your old mulch, put it out in paper bags by the curb with your other yard waste so that the city can turn it into compost. Our plant this week is Rangoon Creeper, a surprisingly drought-tolerant and root-hardy tropical vine. We'd noticed a gorgeous specimen of this plant on our visits to the great outdoors, so we dropped by to talk with Meredith Giles about it and snag some photos. Meredith says their Rangoon Creeper thrives in full sun with very little water and absolutely no fertilizer. It's obvious from the trunk size that this creeper at the great outdoors has survived quite a few years of harsh Central Texas weather, including extended drought and unusually cold winters. It does need the support of a fence or trellis, so be sure to give it a spot where you can provide plenty of height for future growth. Meredith reports that their Rangoon Creeper does freeze back if temperatures drop into the 20s, but bounces right back with no problems when the temperatures warm up. This gorgeous flowering plant, which seems to drip, those flowers drip from every possible spot on the plant, resemble those of plumeria, the flowers do, but they aren't quite as large. We also found this beautiful plant in Ragna's garden in San Antonio, which we recently highlighted. She says that her creeper only gets a few hours of midday sun, so that hampered its establishment a bit, and it took about 3 years to start flowering. But now it blooms quite well, starting in mid-summer. We'd love to hear from you, so please visit us at klru.org/ctg with your questions and plants of the week from your garden.